Hello, everyone. There was a update about 8 hours ago from Stellar.org. I thought I would jump into this for you because it's really important. Stick around to the end of the outline. Please smash the like if you haven't done so already. Get the program out to other people that want to actually learn more about the bigger picture about Stellar. I'm also going to connect this to QNT. Why am I doing that? Well, for one, it's understanding the bigger picture. We have talked numerous times about the regulated liability network, the RLN, I should say, and we've also talked about the RSN, the regulated settlement network. Now, while both of those things are very, very important, it's also incredibly important to understand what is going on with Stellar. So these updates, we're going to jump into it. Stick around to the end. You'll be glad that you did, whether you hold Stellar or Quant or both. Jumping into it, let's go ahead and full screen this. You will see here why this is a big deal. So it talks about what's new. These passkeys, Web3 security means user-friendly design, safer, easier access to decentralized future. This other part, learn all about this, bringing Web 2 user experience to Web 3. Now, when we jump over to the actual page from Stellar.org, they talk about introducing this, but most importantly, it's about a seamless Web3 smart wallet functionality, of course, on mainnet. Now, of course, this was posted at the end of June originally, but they're putting new highlight in regards to this and how they're excited about this. Now, what I gathered from this is that, basically speaking, from the material that was presented, I interpret this as this is Stellar's way of competing directly with Hedera, for example. Now, we've seen in the past, and we've done at least 2 or 3 deep dives in regards to this, Hedera did a collaboration, of course, with Algorand, and you saw some other key players that joined forces, if you will, over at Hedera Hashgraph and so on in regards to Hedera's mechanism, if you will, of getting rid of the whole thing of, is people going to have a oh crap moment for forgetting their C phrases or forgetting to write them down and so on, right? And while some people are, saying that maybe that's a good thing or maybe that's a bad thing because, centralization versus decentralization, understand that we couldn't really come up with a conclusion that they were only going to be the only ones out there that were going to create something like this. Enter in Stellar, basically. That's what I gathered here. And why is this important? You will see why this particular wallet makes so much sense, and also connecting it to the whole thing of the RSN, the Regulated Settlement Network. So I'm going to jump into this. Let's full screen this. Talks about some of these benefits of the passkey feature. So, to leverage a user-friendly flow that mirrors the simplicity of Web 2 applications, make it easier for everyone to transition to Web 3. Again, this is why Stellar stands out in regards to on and off ramps. But more importantly, from what I gathered here, is, this technology, what you see here about SECP T56R1 is technology that has been used in the past in regards to web authentication. So how do we combine some of that old tech with the new and make something better? Well, there's a lot more to it than just reading an article, but from what I did gather is that they have a purpose and a goal in regards to bringing in or bridging the gap, I should say, of, traditional markets with the new ones. Like he literally says on the screen, So by launching this passkey, they will leap forward in regards to getting more of this widespread adoption. Okay, that's the bottom line. As I jump more into the nitty gritty about this particular smart wallet, what you see on the screen right here talks about that unlike traditional cryptocurrency wallets, this specific feature that they have will allow integrations of multi-signature support, will allow other things in regards to, like having it all work together. Back to this topic. SCP-256-R1 provides the cryptographic foundation for key generation and digital signatures. Now, I talked about web authentication. Well, it's abbreviated as web authn, but it offers a standardized framework. So this part where it says standardized framework, don't forget this part, because as we get more into the outline, you understand why this is a big deal. So Stellar Smart Contract, having the whole thing of a foundation for the planet's best smart wall implementation. I mean, there's a lot of different ones in the space. Which one really is the best one out there? And if anything, how could Stellar leapfrog themselves to be at the head of the pack? That's the focus I want you guys to have. And if anything, it's understanding, creating the whole concept of ease of access, user friendliness, and not making people have to feel like they have to jump in through hoops, basically, kind of like, when you came fresh off the boat of Robinhood and then jump into something like, for example, Uniswap, right? That's very intimidating. We're going to get, mass adoption. You got to have a little bit better solution than that, right? So I want to talk about for a second is basically why this is so significant. So, I'm going to jump to this part about this SCPR one more time. So what you see here as we scroll farther up, actually it's right here. This part, from what I gathered, allows smart contracts to verify signatures, creating the usage of this SECP-256R1, and it's referred to as a elliptic curve algorithm. It's important because it's widely used, like I mentioned, in web authn or web authentication. But basically standards behind passkeys. Now, even on this page, it talks a little bit more in regards to passkeys. And what's important to understand is, like it says, how they work together, but this part, right? The implementation of this, right? So you got to keep in mind, while passkeys are a different solution compared to the old traditional method of seed phrases, well, bottom line is being able to eliminate the need for users to remember complex seed phrases, of course private keys, right? Developers can even create smart contracts, interact with the keys. So again, this is why, or I should say, this is another example of many of why Stellar developed the whole Protocol 21 upgrade, the Sorbonne Premier Smart Contract platform. The whole idea of being able to use secure methods like fingerprint scans or hardware tokens to sign transactions, that's a game changer for Stellar. I want to talk about roughly about 4 things real quick in regards to this, and you can check out some other stuff while we have it on the screen. But basically, if you weren't aware of it, having an improved user experience, the passkeys in themselves offer a more user-friendly and secure way to interact, of course, with the Stellar network. You better believe it's going to be more attractive to new users who might have been discouraged, right, by the complexity of traditional blockchain wallets. I mean, even myself, like, I kind of talked myself out of, coming into Shiba Inu at the very beginning because I was so intimidated by the whole idea of all this technical stuff that just seemed really intimidating, right? And of course, think of how many other people, fell into that. As a result, it cost me 1-0 off of that ship, and so that's game changer. When we erase zeros off of particular projects and so on, well, instead of getting bigger gains, right, that was lesser gains. And while I'm not complaining of turning 8K into 88K, I am complaining that I wasn't able to turn it into over 200K. You get where I'm coming from. So jumping more into this for a second, I want you guys to understand that when we talk about some of this stuff, attracting new users who've been discouraged by the complexity of traditional blockchain wallets, that's game changer, right? You can talk about high-tech stuff all day long, but it's the complexity of these traditional blockchain wallets. That's the bottom line. Will we see enhanced security in regards to this? The answer is yes. Passkeys, if you weren't aware of it, reduce the risk of lost or stolen private keys, which are a major concern in the blockchain space. Now, will this cause Stellar to have a stronger foundation for smart wallets? Yes. Stellar's smart contract capabilities combined with passkey support pave the way for innovative smart wallet solutions with advanced features like multi-signature support, automated transactions, right? But the potential for wider adoption, guys, making blockchain tech more accessible and user-friendly is the bottom line here. Stellar could see increased adoption from individuals and even businesses. And I think we're obviously going to see that when we get the flip of the switch moment, which in my opinion is ISO 222 mandate November 2025. Unless that gets delayed, but I don't really think it's going to happen. That's just my own personal opinion, and we can agree to disagree. Now, what I want to now show you is this whole thing of quant and, of course, Stellar. Now, there's other examples, like you see Ripple, and we covered this in the past, IOTA, and so on. But this whole concept on the bottom, bridging traditional enterprise and financial infrastructure with the new decentralized finance infrastructure. And of course, you see Overledger to Binance. We talked about that in the past. And then also Overledger to, of course, things like Stellar. So we understand that by having those on and off ramps to enterprise permission blockchains, it is a big deal. But guess what? Were you aware of some of these other things? Now, the other things I'm talking about is this. We understand that when it comes to quant, SATP is a big deal. Secure Asset Transfer Protocol is a huge, huge deal. But what's also a big deal is the connections to the IETF. Is there really a stellar connection to the Internet Engineering Task Force? Because again, we talked about standards, did we not? The answer is yes. Why is this a big deal? Look what it says on the screen. Stellar Consensus Protocol. As you can see, they have a history here. And what's most important is to understand that it even dates back to the last update of May 8th, 2019. Now, why am I citing something that was so old? Well, basically speaking, you see Jed McCaleb there, but what's also interesting is to see some of the things being mentioned in regards to things like this. And that is IETF's secure asset transfer protocol, like some of these use cases, and how, for example, it fits the bill of agnostic, or in this case, blockchain agnostic types of distributed ledger technologies. But to see the STN and to see Stellar part of the mix makes you really wonder, I didn't realize that, because, like it says also on the bottom, the Stellar SCP is an open Byzantine agreement protocol resistant to Sybil attacks. It allows internet infrastructure stakeholders to reach an agreement on a series, of course, of values. So this consensus protocol with Stellar and having this IETF connection, I do think is a big deal, because we understand that it's a huge deal when it comes to what? Quant, because you have to have something that is going to be safe, secure, seamless, and future-proof, as Gilbert Verdine has mentioned. Is there a little bit more in regards to this? There is, and I have cited this in the past. So while we talk about XDC quite a bit, and we did that in the last deep dive, look what it also mentions in regards to supply chain management. Again, this is cited from IETF, but look, to complete the picture, we can add payments network to the mix. Of course, where Stellar is really at the forefront of that, which maintains currency, accounts for clients in different countries and enables cross-border payments. For example, the Stellar network, they even highlight them. After goods have been dispatched and optionally after verification of the delivery and proper condition of a shipment, payment is due from an importer to an exporter. Trade Finance Network can record a payment obligation on its ledger and will rely on the payments to process and confirm the actual transfer of funds. The former shares data about the obligation to the latter, which shares data about a successful or otherwise payment in return. Of course, they have an illustration about this, but again, it's the ones that are connected to it all. And like it shows, it's not just XDC at the forefront, which, don't get me wrong, I hold that too, but it's also understanding how the payments network would connect to that. So you better believe when we talk about Stellar and we talk about Quant and we talk about XDC, it's seeing how the ecosystem all comes together. And I'm going to give you more of an example of how this works. So I'm going to jump over to this. We've cited this in the past as well, but you see all these abbreviations, R3 with Corda. You see SATP in regards to even Martin Hargreaves from Quant, Thomas Harjano from MIT. Then when you drop it down, again, the reference from STN from the IETF in regards to accessing your what? Universe of opportunities back in 2022. Now, why is that so much of a big deal? And why am I even just citing stuff from the past? Here's why. In this video from Project Sealer Report Launch Conference, this is part 2, you will see this statement from the Bank of Israel, and they're just one of many, okay? You will also see that the BIS is present here. You'll also see that the Hong Kong, Monetary Authority is present here. But what I want to draw your emphasis to is how we tie it all even to the likes of our beloved Stellar. So on the far left, talks about FIS, which this lady is from. Digital currencies connected, ecosystem. Who is at the forefront of this? Now, it doesn't show the logo of Quant, but we study this enough. And look what it says, front row center, in the middle, digital currencies platform. You might as well interpret that as being the Overledger network because that is the platform. How so? We'll get a little bit more into that. Far left side talks about shared services, smart contracts. Boom, Stellar stands out that, or, definitely takes the cake, right? Quant, a lot of talk about digital IDs, what's going on in the European Union, even Japan. Boom, there's that. What about the whole thing of fraud systems? Remember, again, with Quant, we were talking about Quant authorized, right? So a little bit more about that as well. If you want to reference it, it's there. Interoperability. Quant is basically interoperability everything. And then getting more into it, like we talked about, even on today's outline, what stands out for you all, guys? Come on, don't overthink it. It is the right side of this chart. User wallets, accounts, some of those other devices. What about existing systems? How does it really all come together, right? So I'm going to play this. Listen to what this lady has to say. I'm done talking for now. Listen to it for yourself, and you're still not with me. Don't worry, I hear you. We'll talk about a little bit more about this and why it's important. Here we go.
Or will exist. So this is a high level of digital currencies connected ecosystem, which is powered by M10 technology. It's a private permissioned blockchain platform. So in the middle, you can see digital money platform. It's a blockchain platform, as I said. And then, of course, you have a seamless interconnectivity integration to your RTGS and account-to-account payment systems. On the left-hand side, you can see how digital regulated money platform is going to connect into your payment hub and how it's going to link up to your payment platforms, core banking platforms, and existing systems that you would run at the commercial bank or at insurance company or whatever it is. And then, of course, you would also have your command centers, and digital currency platform also provides a wallet. You have seen the wallets today, and then, of course, we will enable user devices for the payment as well. At FIS on the merchant side, we run ATMs, and we do provide points of sale, so those would be enabled to accept CBDC or regulated stablecoin. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, you will see all the shared services. Those could be digital identity, it could be KYC, AML, it could be your fraud systems, it could be smart contract applications. So we're very much looking at this new alternative payment methods from a perspective that we need to adjust our core systems at FIS to support these new alternative payment systems. And I've actually met a couple of banks in the hall that were using FIS's systems. So, and we are enabling this for them, hopefully in the future. Again, this is kind of, giving you more of a, maybe technical perspective, on, what it looks like. You have a, shared hierarchical ledger, and you have your, digital, shekel. You have your, CBDC. You have your regulated stablecoin that, will be on this, shared, ledger, and you can have, any other assets on the ledger as well. And then, of course, you also have additional applications, whether that's, FX, service or AML or CFD. So this is just another iteration of what we showed before. So this is what you would probably look like from the kind of architecture perspective. So you have your core ledger, and here you can tokenize commercial bank deposits. You can tokenize your central bank reserves. You could tokenize your CBDC, or you could tokenize your money market funds, or those could be again regulated stable coins in Europe. Of course we are looking forward to MiCA to take off in Q2 of 2024. So again, we are looking, to advance and perhaps, offer our, commercial bank clients, regulated stablecoin EMTs or ARTs, or you could also tokenize private stablecoin as well.
All right, let's pause there for a second, and I'll let her continue here in a moment. I don't want this to just go right past your head. I mean, again, if you're driving down the road, that's one thing. You can't look down, and please be safe. But the point is, FIS, digital currencies connected ecosystem, high level architecture. Again, think about the architecture that's behind all this. So we talked about quant. We talked about, for example, connecting to the RLN. We also talked about the whole notion of, connecting to a settlement network, right? But it's the shared services, right? So let's talk about that for a second. So on the left side, the payment gateways, we understand how Stellar sits at the whole thing. And we'll get more into this where you'll literally hear some of these guys. So payment gateway, right? What about the whole thing of treasury management? Remember in at least 2 deep dives I've done talking about financial inclusion, the U.S. Treasury and Stellar? Right. Did we forget about that? Absolutely. Some of us did, some of us didn't. You might be new, but that was big. Understanding there's a settlement engine. Again, back to what? The RSN, the Regulated Settlement Network. Okay. What about some of the smart contracts? What about those contract engines? Again, shared services with it, right? It's not just one, but there's some more than just one. So when you see other things about FIS platform wallet as a service, talk about, for example, BaaS, banking as a service, some of these other ones. Interesting to see how it connects to what? The middle part, secure API gateway. And at the forefront of that is literally understanding how quant comes into the bigger picture, because we already share those examples of how this can all be created. And if you haven't seen those examples with visuals, check out that video. I should say videos that I created. You'll be glad that you did. Now, the other thing I want to point out too is on the right side. This is where Stellar really comes into play, because applications, retail pay, that right there, without even saying it, Stellar. Okay, trade finance. Well, XDC. We already did that in the last deep dive video, right? Bill pay. You could even have, for example, what we talked about in regards to MoneyGram, and talking about some of those things in regards to MoneyGram and Stellar. All right, back to the whole thing of treasury. So, I mean, all of this simply makes sense. I'm going to play a little bit more of this. We're going to get to the next part of another gentleman you're going to see on your screen, and why that's important as well, because of this conference that was from Project Stila. Here we go.
Depends if you want to do so. And then, of course, also part of the core ledger, you have FX service. So the BIS have explored this concept of singleness. Some of you may have seen that report. So again, on the core ledger, you can seamlessly exchange one asset for another asset, and it's going to be instant and atomic settlement between various, digital regulated types of money. If you want to, exchange your bank deposit for your money market piece of your money market fund, you can do that, and you can do that atomic, transaction. And again, fitting within the, various applications. Those could be embedded finance applications. We were on the premises of Bank of Israel yesterday, and there was, discussion on the kind of, embedded finance as well. Again, there will be, I would say, seamless interoperability with your embedded finance applications. Those could be, retail pay or, trade finance, bill pay, whatever it is.
Trade finance, seamless interoperability. I mean, come on, guys, think about it.
And then, of course, supported by, platform shared services as well. Here is, this is probably more important, for commercial banks. And again, no one is disintermediating commercial banks. I think, all these digital currencies will exist in the future. Here is, kind of enterprise view, and this is how you would, see this. We basically will enable commercial banks to provide, the back office systems, will be upgraded, and the front office, systems will be updated as well. And the most important, we use the API first model, so it will be connected to your, digital currencies connected ecosystem. So seamless integration, seamless interoperability with your existing core banking platform. So you don't need to replace,
How do you say quant without saying quant, right? Right.
rip and replace any of your core systems. You can just, connect, to the connected ecosystem through our API gateway, and it will allow you that seamless connection. Here is, just, quickly on kind of, M0 and M1 money.
All right, so we've covered numerous times the whole notion of M10 and M money and so on. I'm just going to jump over to this real quick, just in case some of you guys are new. So this is from m10.io/technology. And as you can see, the M10 system can process over 1 million payments per second at latency less than 1 second. This level of performance can be delivered with a small number of instances, making M10 a payment system with a minimal carbon footprint. So that's game changer, absolutely. People talk about the scalability issues with, Stellar and Ripple's XRP, and, saying, come on, we have to do a lot more than 1500 TPS or 2000 TPS, or even if it's Hedera, right? 28,000 TPS may sound great. Don't get me wrong. Maybe that's enough to get the job done. But when we talk about scalability, we don't want anything getting throttled. I have to have the same user experience as anybody else. And how about this? Banks have to have the same user experience as other banks, right? So you have to have scalability. Absolutely. Jumping into this again, I want to talk about this regulation of payments. This is another person from Project Sela. You have to listen to why this is so important, and we'll even tie this into the whole thing of Stellar. Stick around for this part as well, because there's a bigger picture. Listen to this. Here we go.
Now, what we're seeing is that worked really well in the context of traditional payments, where we had that little chain that we've seen in the beginning of our projects. What we're seeing now is that there are so many novel propositions in payments where the traditional payment space and the traditional payments chains are being disrupted. And I've just set out 3 themes here that illustrate this in a way. We've got at the very end of the spectrum an entirely bypassing system of the traditional framework, where we look at the use of digital assets entirely in the entire payments block supply chain, where effectively the payment is done within crypto assets entirely. So you've got one wallet, custodial wallet from one.
Think about what he just said. Crypto assets entirely. Remember, some of these yahoos have been telling you guys for a couple years now, they're not going to use, don't get involved in crypto banker coins. That was bad information, okay? You want to get involved in crypto banker coins. And like he literally said, and this is not from me, this is from some of the horse's mouths, right? Understanding the bigger picture. And that bigger picture, he literally said crypto coins. And look, you see as part of that citation, novel propositions in what? Payments, traditional payment services, and payment infrastructures being challenged and, of course, disrupted. New technology allows novel ways of achieving payments, blurring the line between infrastructure and service providers. Think about that. And who is at front row center? It's Stellar. Use of public blockchain and settlement assets to transmit fiat currency. But with what network? The regulated settlement network. That's the quant plug. And who's an example? Stellar and Lumens. Wow, it literally says that. And then it goes on to mention that no harmonized regulatory environment and service may be regulated. And then who do you also see there? JPM coin. And as we cited also in the past, I know I'm getting a little excited, sorry about that, but it's understanding that you saw JP Morgan from another spectrum of the overledger, right? Talking about the ones that weren't even using, some of the traditional rails and so on. So it's like it's all coming full circle from both spectrums, from, traditional finance and going forward into Web3. Let's play a little bit more about this.
Another custodial wallet, we see that it happens less because people are not necessarily tech savvy enough to pick this up. And so the retail adoption of this is limited, but it's growing. The issue with this is, of course, that, until now, we're only developing regulatory frameworks in respect of digital assets. That entire payment aspect sits outside the regulatory framework. And to the extent that there is regulation, it is varying between jurisdictions. It's very different in different places. And so, some of the questions that we get as lawyers is it okay if I just facilitate my business on the basis of USDC or whatever. And the answers to that, normally start with, well, in what jurisdiction are we talking about, and how does this work, and what do you actually mean? And sadly, what firms then find is that it gets trickier to navigate different regulatory frameworks. The intermediate model is sort of something that looks a little bit like that, where you use public blockchains in order to facilitate a payment, but you've got at the very end two regulated payment providers, and you've got two payment services providers that sit locally and may have been regulated. They may have received a license or something like that, but the payments chain, the intermediation, has been supplemented by some sort of blockchain, and you use a digital settlement asset that sits in between.
You hear what he said at the end? Use some sort of digital asset that sits in between, right? Like, for example, maybe a platform. Think about it, guys. This is why we've done all these deep dives in regards to like the RLN, the regulated settlement network, and so on. So I'm not going to elaborate a little bit or too much more on that. But again, that really, really pounds that home, does it not? All right, let's talk about this for a second. Let's full screen this. Genesis 2.0 context from the BIS. I want to share this with you guys for a second, all right? So this dates back, of course, to October 2022, but what does it say? Smart contract-based carbon credits attached to green bonds. Remember how it said with the M10, right, that they would just have a minimal carbon footprint? Minimal. Interesting. Now, with Stellar, we did a deep dive not that long ago, right, talking about tokenized bonds and how Stellar is really going to stand out in that regard, especially with the whole plug to, Banque de France, right? So here's this whole thing on the screenshot: a proposed new green bond structure, appended with mitigation outcome interest. For example, future contracts with a commitment to deliver at maturity verified carbon credits. Interesting. Principal on bond, you see some of this, some of the mitigations, some of the other things. But again, who's the issuers? Who are the investors? And we understand that quite a few issuers and investors are behind all this. Jumping into the next part about this, do we have any citation literally from Stellar about the full package of tokenizing securities on the Stellar network? We do. And here it is. Boom. Some of that boiler mash is sticking in stew. Not surprisingly, the largest asset class on the Stellar network by volume is tokenized securities. Major financial institutions, many of them, trust the network's robust asset control features and efficiency to issue securities of their own, including money market funds and bonds, like I pointed out before, such as those issued by Franklin Templeton, Benji, Wisdom Tree. I mentioned these literally before. You have ABN AMRO Digital Bond and the Bank of International Settlements Asian and Green Bond Fund. Hence why you saw the whole thing of what? The Hong Kong Monetary Authority was there, right? MAS. So new and existing asset issuers building on the Stellar blockchain can enjoy the following key advantages. But the bottom line is what? Many major financial institutions already trust the network. Yeah, they could give a crap about somebody's retail narrative of how Stellar is not moving because this is smart money. Okay? All right, how about this? Is there another example? Yes, Stellar.org use cases, tokenization, trusted by leading institutions. Let's pound that home just a little bit more. Stellar is a proven platform for asset issuance. Many well-known institutions, again, select Stellar, preferred as their network for RWA tokenization. Boom, all that again. Franklin Templeton, Wisdom Tree, Circle, and so on. Do we have anything more in regards to the U.S. Treasury? Because I did mention them. Yes, we do. Let's give you the citation from CoinDesk. Look what it says. Tokenized U.S. Treasury markets grow nearly 600% to 698 million as crypto's RWA race intensifies. Of course, that was from late last year, but the point is, like it says, Ethereum toppled Stellar as the top blockchain for tokenized government bonds, while more recent entrants, so on and so on. Right. That was at that time. What do we have going on now? Stellar realizes supply and demand, and as a result, Stellar now has the Protocol 21 upgrade, which is what, guys? The premier smart contract platform for Stellar. So watch out for Stellar to be the leader of the pack. That's the way I look at it. I think a lot of you guys look at it that way as well. Back to the whole thing of Franklin Templeton. They had the whole thing of upgrading, right? So Franklin Templeton upgraded 380 million of tokenized treasury fund to enable peer-to-peer transfers. And look what it also says. Back in April, not that long ago of this year, new feature helped to expand the utility of the Franklin Templeton on-chain U.S. government money funds, the Benji token, and made it more interconnected with the digital asset ecosystem. Why is this so important? Well, basically speaking, is when we get into more of that ecosystem we talked about earlier. Yes, because what did that lady show on the screen? Maybe you didn't see it. I zoomed in. It's a little blurry because somebody took it with a cell phone, but it's scalability, and what we're seeing is, what the banks are connected to, what Stellar is connected to. But basically, back to the beginning of the outline, and what did we talk about? You got to have what? A user-friendly wallet that supports a range of devices, wearable cards, mobile apps, etc., etc. We have to have something to connect it with an API, everything, right? Well, right in the middle, banks connect to the network through a simple APIs. All right, what about some of those shared services? Again, FX exchange, smart contracts, Stellar's at the forefront of that. And you also have a directory of this. What about shared ledgers? Been there, done that, but guess what? We talk about stable coins. Remember the next big thing for Stellar with USDC? All right. Well, what about a platform to allow for interoperability? Top right, with other CBDCs, digital asset networks. So interesting to even see it. And again, let's make a full circle. Who's the payee? Well, wallet applications that support QR codes, requests to pay. Like maybe Franklin Templeton, or maybe, for example, especially MoneyGram. Yeah, I think we understand how that works. All right. Where did this all start from the Stellar perspective? Can we have an example? Because guess what? I'm tired of hearing about test pilots. I am too, right? But guess what? We have to reference them. So here's your example. This is Stellar with BIT, okay? Financial institution applications, current banking system. Then you have BIT, digital currency operations manager. You even had a vault that, allow this to all happen, and also the minting of that. So you see how it kicked over to the merchant business applications, and then on the far right, like it says, individuals, branded mobile wallet. Okay, so Maximus just showed you guys something in regards to that. Is an old example, but does it literally say Stellar? It does. And look what it says: commerce engine, authentication provider, AML, CFT, KYT provider is BIT. You see Stellar logo, and on the far left, it talks about how they are the blockchain network. And at the very bottom for the citation, overview of the Stellar BIT DCMS solution. Now, you may be thinking, okay, that's cool. I don't quite get it. Hey, I'm with you. The reason why this is important is because this was the first of its kind to get it done for Stellar. And while a lot of us aren't a big fan of what's going on in Ukraine and so on, I don't want to get the politics of it, but I want to citate where it started to give you an example where we are going. Ukraine has been laying the groundwork for the potential launch of electronic hryvnia, right? In early July, at least back in, 2021, give or take, the nation's parliament passed a law regulating payment methods that listed the future CBDC in the same category as cash or electronic money in late July. Of course, Zelensky signed into law a bill that will allow that NBU to issue, of course, a CBDC. Now, you may be thinking, did anything happen in regards to Stellar after all that? Well, we'll get into that. But back to the whole thing a bit, because they are abbreviated as banking innovation through technology. And what's more important is understanding, of course, the integrations of it all. So DCMS can integrate with existing financial infrastructure. Think about this. Here's your icing on the cake, including real-time gross settlements, course, automated clearinghouse networks, core banking systems, as well as existing payment processing platforms, including bill payment. Oh, there's the Stellar plug through what? Things like MoneyGram. Okay, what about some of these other ones? Remittances. Okay, we can even throw, for example, the beloved SHX token, right? Because we know they stand out in regards to remittances. And also, just like traditional currency ecosystem, CBDC systems require multiple elements to function correctly. Exactly. And that functional platform to bring it all together is the Quant Overledger. And look what it says on the right, just in case we forgot about ISO 222, the compatibilities. Look at this. This is great. DCMS can integrate with payment networks who support the ISO 222 messaging standards. How so? Because DCMS can integrate with both blockchain-based and traditional transaction networks. That is some awesome, awesome stuff. Glad to be able to share it with you guys. And just in case if you're worrying in regards to, because, some of you guys were like, well, all I care about is price. Well, guess what? Were you aware of this? Remember I talked about the announcement of Project Hervnia originally? Hear me out. Stellar XLM saw a significant price increase in regards to that. Basically, the price of XLM surged over 15% from September 2nd to September 11th, 2023. As I said, 2021, my bad on that. 2023, as the Stellar team teased a major announcement, which led to the heightened interest and speculation within the community. What happens instead of just having one example, you guys, in regards to Stellar and just one test pilot, if you will, with Ukraine? Then we get, for example, we're done with all the testing and we have multiple countries. That is where I want you to really, really pay attention to, because guess what? If that was your buy the rumor, sell the news, what about when we have the whole thing of already bought that rumor, let's see the utility being put into motion instead of jumping into these projects when they have already been sent. All right, last example, and I should say this is not just your icing on the cake. This is your, I guess you could say, your ice cream with the whipped cream and strawberries on top. Whip it till you don't stop to the boat rock, right? Jump into this, for example. Okay, here's a screenshot from the video. I've shared this before, but I played the video. I want to get into this because, boom, this is going to absolutely wrap it up, because we talked about the regulated settlement network and the United States in the background. Like it says, it's a hypothesis, but it's, again, listen to this. The United States, through the RSN, POC intends to test the hypothesis of a shared ledger. Think about that. Always on. Because it's not like the stock market. It's always on. Multi-asset network consisting of tokenized, for example, contracts, central bank money, U.S. treasuries, back to that example, and other regulated assets to achieve near real-time DVP settlement for multi-asset transfers. All right? A little bit more about this. Having both tokenized central bank money and commercial bank money within the RSN, FMI will allow the FMI to maintain an existing two-tier banking system. Think about that. This is why Stellar puts so much focus on the on and off ramps. Do we have anything about bridges? We do. Through interlinking solution or bridge, other regulated cash and security networks can connect to, of course, the RSN to achieve what? Near real-time PvP and DVP transaction settlement. This other thing, the RSN FMI will be leveraged as a centralized settlement infrastructure. And who is the infrastructure to connect it all? It is Quant's Overledger. All right. What else will the RSN allow? It will allow onboarding of institutions to operate their own partitions, which will reflect in institutions' books and records to preserve privacy standards. Back to all those references at the beginning of the outline. For what transactions to take place in the FMI, which will remain in line with existing regulatory requirements. Don't ever forget it, because it's there. And this last part, the last two, I should say, RSN FMI contains commercial bank money, for example, tokenized deposits. There's your whole thing of Quant. Central bank money, that's also Quant. And let's talk about U.S. Treasuries. There's your Stellar, because U.S. Treasuries, the United States Treasury announced with the article, and we did 2 videos about this, talking about Getting together with Stellar for what, guys? Financial inclusion. Last part, RSN FMI will look to be interoperable, boom, quant, with other networks to allow for settlement of other regulated cash and assets through interoperability solution or direct API integration through the API of everything. Quant network through the Overledger. There you have it. Boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. We're out. If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.